situation. So Rogan, as you know, has been bringing on people to his show. He brought on Dr. Robert Malone. Obviously, Dr. Robert Malone was one of the people who was instrumental in creating the mRNA vaccine technology. Not only was he instrumental in creating that, but he is very outspoken against the COVID vaccine. He has opinions that are, different from the mainstream media narrative, and that doesn't go over well with mainstream media. Certainly doesn't go over well with big pharma. Okay, so without diving too far into that, needless to say, Rogan isn't exactly the most pro-vax for the COVID vaccine person out there. We've heard Rogan talk about the whole ivermectin thing. It's really pissing off big pharma, mainstream media. They've gone through the whole thing about he's taking horse dewormers and BS like that, right? So, they've been trying to cancel Rogan for some time. Well, Neil Young, the classic rocker Neil Young, okay, he came out and basically gave Spotify the ultimatum, and he said, look, either you're going to have Joe Rogan on your platform or you can have my music, but pick one because you can't have both, okay? Very ironic. First of all, okay, when is the last time that Neil Young has had a song out that's made it to the charts? Let's be honest. I'm not going to take anything away from Neil Young as a legendary guy in the music business for classic rock, but let's be honest. Neil Young is past his heyday, okay? If we're going to talk about who's bringing in revenue, who's making the money right now, is it Neil Young or is it the guy who's probably got the biggest podcast going on right now? He's becoming a household name, and Spotify obviously thought his podcast was so good that they wanted to pay this guy millions of dollars to just be exclusive to their platform. Who do you think Spotify's probably got a bigger financial interest in? I would say the obvious answer to that is definitely going to be Joe Rogan, okay? Joe Rogan is being talked about all over the place. Neil Young, not so much, okay? But there's been multiple things that Neil Young has, stepped off in the past, okay? And I want to touch on that for just a moment, okay? So if you've been watching Jimmy Dore lately, Jimmy Dore's been talking about a little bit of this, okay? Dore's been talking about the fact that, for one, you've got some of Neil Young's old bandmates who have come out and said that Neil Young is the most selfish person that they've ever known, okay? You've also got the fact that, as Jimmy has brought up, Neil Young sold rights to his music to Blackstone. To freaking with Blackstone, okay? This is the same group that's ravaging the Amazon, tearing down the rainforest or whatever, right? This is the same group that's trying to kick people out of their homes, all this eviction junk, okay? They're a pretty sick group of people over there at Blackstone, and this is who he is doing business with. This is who he sold his music to. So this goes back to what, Crosby said, okay? Literally, the guy's selfish. He's complaining about what Rogan's doing, like, oh, you either got to have him or you can have me, but you're going to do business with Blackstone. Well, it turns out some people in charge of Blackstone have ties to Pfizer. Who would have thought it? Okay? So, I think Jimmy's done a really good job at bringing up this point. So, turns out your music is now owned by the group that has ties to Big Pharma. And now you got the biggest podcast, I would say, in the United States today, who is bringing on guests that don't just carry Big Pharma's narratives about the vaccine. And now you're going to say, well, I don't like that. Either you can have my music or you can have his stuff or whatever, but one's got to go. Is it coincidence? Is it coincidence? Furthermore than that, okay, he tells people shortly thereafter, basically boycott Spotify and start listening to Amazon Music instead. Amazon Music, the music streaming platform that is owned by Jeff Bezos, the guy that runs a company that's telling their delivery drivers to piss in bottles. I know truckers that do that. I don't know about normal delivery drivers that do that, but that's sick. We're talking about the same place that treats their workers pretty poorly. Pretty poorly is a drastic understatement there, by the way. They treat them like shit, if you want to just be flat out and blunt and honest. Okay? They treat their workers like shit. They definitely don't pay them what really they should be earning. They've done everything in their power to union bust so the workers can't, unite. This guy's making money out the wazoo. He's made it's fucking stomach turning the more you actually dig into Jeff Bezos. But this is who you support. So because you don't like what Rogan had to say about the COVID pandemic or the vaccine, you don't support people going to that platform that he's on to get their music, but you support them going to the music platform owned and controlled by that guy to get their music. That says a whole lot for you now, doesn't it? So, you know, but that's more recent history with Neil Young. Honestly, I've never really been that much of a Neil Young fan. I think Leonard Skinner had the perfect response to Neil Young all the way back in the 70s. Everybody knows the song, just like more people probably keep up with Joe Rogan today than they do with Neil Young. Back then, there were two songs that came out. And one, pretty much anybody that's ever listened to very much music knows to this day. The other, you might know it, but you're probably going to be guaranteed to know one over the other one. You're probably going to be guaranteed to have heard at least at some point in your life Sweet Home Alabama by Leonard Skinner. If you haven't, go listen to it. I mean, where have you been hiding? Okay. Sweet Home Alabama. It is a classic tune. Okay. And obviously, you can tell I like Leonard Skinner because I've got Ronnie Van Zant right over here on the wall. But there were literally a line, okay, in that song. There was a line where they took a dig at Neil Young. I'm trying to go off of memory here, but I think it's, well, I heard Mr. Young sing about her. Well, I heard old Neil put her down. Well, I hope Neil Young will remember. A Southern man don't need him around anyhow. What was he talking about? So Neil Young had a song that came out prior to that called Alabama. I'm going to read you some of the lyrics here, okay? Oh, Alabama, the devil fools with the best laid plane. Swing low, Alabama, you got the spare change. You got to feel strange. And now the moment is all that it meant. Alabama, you got weight on your shoulders that's breaking your back. Your Cadillac has got a wheel in the ditch and a wheel on the track. Oh, Alabama, banjos playing through your broken glass windows down in Alabama. See the old folks tied in white ropes. Hear the banjo. Don't it take you down home? Alabama, you got the weight on your shoulders. So he just keeps going through this. Now, basically, this whole song is one giant shot at Alabama and really the South in general. And it's basically a shot about the South's troubled past in terms of slavery, in terms of Jim Crow, et cetera, et cetera. Now, in the 1970s, did these elements still exist? Yes. But you could chalk this up to Neil Young basically being the original woke libtard from the 1970s. And Leonard Skinner had to basically retort by saying, listen, you Canadian piece of trash, you weren't born in the fucking South. Quit talking shit about where the fuck we're from. Because while these bad elements exist, you're paintbrushing our whole fucking state and our whole fucking culture to be a bunch of backward hick hillbillies who are just racist pieces of trash. That's what the fuck you're doing. We grew up here, and that's not how we feel about things. And if you want any kind of insight into where Leonard Skinner got their motivation to do what they did, they got it from blues, the old rock and roll, which predominantly was done by black people. Icons in rock and roll like Chuck Berry, okay? And if you haven't listened to Chuck Berry and you consider yourself to be a fan of rock, I suggest you do so. You can tell where the energy in rock and roll really got its start. People like Elvis, people like Leonard Skinner take what they got from rock from people like that. Okay. Some people would say they were ripping off the culture. I wouldn't go with that. I say it's paying homage to it. Listen to Leonard Skinner's song, The Ballad of Curtis Lowe. Okay. They had an appreciation for that. They didn't want to just rip it off. They had an appreciation for it. So that was a response that I thought was great. You know, it's how I feel about it. So, Neil Young has just made a reputation over the years. Some people might consider him a musical genius, but, honestly, he just made a reputation, in my opinion, over the years of, just sticking his foot square in his mouth. That's how I feel about it. Now, of course, as a result of this, there were other people who got on board this train with Neil Young as well. Joni Mitchell, somebody else from Springsteen's E Street Band, Lofgren, I forget the first name. But so now all these woke folks of yesteryear are trying to band together and come out to cancel Joe Rogan. Well, it ain't fucking happening. If I'm not mistaken, I think I just saw something earlier today where freaking Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has come out in support of Joe Rogan. Well, ain't that a bitch? Somebody else that's way, way more prevalent to pop culture today than Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, or for that matter, the fucking boss Bruce Springsteen. I think The Rock is a, more popular figure in today's world than any of those three. And even though it wasn't Springsteen that came out, it was some fucker from his band or whatever, right? So yeah, Niels Lofgren. There we go. That's the one. So, and I'm pretty sure as far as people who even liked what The Rock had to say, hell, Chris Pratt, I know, was one, and I can't remember who in the hell the other one was. But yeah, these people are way more prevalent to today's culture than Neil Young with the pork chop sideburns he's rocking, okay? So, Neil Young just needs to go sit down. He needs to keep playing around with his billionaire buddies who don't give a shit about the working class and treat their workers like crap. Don't grandstand, basically. Now, back to Joe Rogan. The other thing that cracks me the fuck up about all this mess is the fact that when this all first came out, there were people who definitely leaned more over to the right that were like, oh yeah, support Joe Rogan, it's our man. They're trying to cancel him. Well, free speech. First of all, some of these fucking people talking about free speech, I find that ironic. They're bitching about cancel culture and free speech, and they're some of the biggest hypocrites when it comes to that. Even some of them and how they operate their own channels. But that being said, okay, they literally make this out like Rogan's some hero. And because Rogan responded and basically said he would be open to allowing pro-vax people to come on his channel, he's committed fucking errors. Well, no, he's caved to the woke libtards. So let me get this straight. You got a problem with a guy who has trained in mixed martial arts, commentates for mixed martial arts, has hosted TV shows like Fear Factor, and is an active stand-up comedian. In other words, by no means is he a doctor. By no means is he a scientist. By no means is he a virologist. And guess what? He doesn't claim to be any of those things either. But you got a problem with him simply saying, hey, I just want to hear viewpoint. That's literally all he said. He's like, I want to hear what these people had to say. Obviously, he's probably got an opinion that leans in one direction or the other. But as he pointed out, he's already had on Sanjay Gupta. He's had on other people that are more pro-vax. He's had on people that are part of the Biden team to deal with COVID or whatever, right? He's brought on people with the pro-vax standpoint. Like, this is something new to you. Like him coming out and saying, hey, if I bring on someone like Robert Malone, maybe I try to bring on someone that works for Pfizer next. I don't know. Like, but that's, oh, he's caving. Well, he's already fucking been bringing these people on. Where in the hell have you been? Obviously, you must not really follow the Joe Rogan experience that well, or you'd know he's had these people on in the past. Joe Rogan is not a partisan fucking hack. Joe Rogan just likes to talk to people, and he'll talk to pretty much just about anybody. So what the hell is your gripe that he's saying he would bring on some pro-vax people? Now you're going in the opposite way. Now you only want him to bring on the point of view that you agree with. So what's all this freedom of speech? Why do you have a problem with him bringing people on even if they don't agree with you, and then letting people hear what's said and letting people decide for them fucking selves? I thought that's what indie media was supposed to be doing. We want to lay it all out there, and whichever argument seems to make the most fucking sense, let people walk away from it with some common sense. Yeah, I see a guy in the comments here, Rick French, in the chat, and he will admit when he's wrong. Absolutely. As Dora said, this is probably one of the most honest guys out there today. You know, I love watching Joe Rogan's show, okay? Even if I don't agree with the people he's got on, I think, in all honesty, just the vibe I get from Joe Rogan, I feel like he's a pretty straight up, straightforward guy. And he could talk to just about anyone. And as long as you're not a complete, buffoon, I think it could be a pretty productive conversation. And by no means does that mean all these people like Fauci or Sanjay Gupta are buffoons. They're not buffoons, guys. They're actually smart. That's how they control the power that they control. You might think they're evil, but you ever heard of an evil genius? Well, you don't get to that place by just being stupid. So let's see what we got going on in some of these chats here real quick. Because, that's pretty much what my take is on it. It cracks me up how so many people got triggered because Rogan took one stance. And because Rogan just simply said he's willing to listen to the pro-vax crowd, then the people who were all cheerleading Rogan are like, oh, well, he's caved now. Like, fuck. So you're just as bad, honestly, in some ways, as the other fucking side that you were bitching about trying to cancel him. Because now you're like, well, no, he's a sellout. No, the fuck he's not. He's saying he wants to talk to people. That's not being a sellout. So, let's see what we got.